cover. First, remove the 7 pieces of bottom rubber that cover the screws for the stand bottom cover. Peel off the black label holder from the center of the stand bottom cover. This must be reused later. Try to prevent the label holder from rolling in on itself. Reserve the label holder aside in an unrolled position. Detach the 14 black Phillips No. 2 screws that secure the stand bottom cover to the stand. Loosen the single captive Phillips No. 2 screw that also secures the stand bottom cover. Carefully pry off the stand bottom cover from the bottom of the unit. To replace the stand bottom cover, align the oval cutouts on the cover over the bottom. Detach the 4 Phillips No. 2 screws that secure the hard drive cage to the stand. Pull the hard drive cage off of its standoffs on the stand. Next, gently pull out on the retaining lever located on each side of the SO-DIMM memory module. The module partially remove the hard drive and cable from the hard drive cage. Remove the cable from the drive. Pull the cable out of its cable guides on the stand. Detach the hard drive cable headers from the motherboard and remove it from the unit. Push up on the retaining tab at the top of the board and pull the board and its connector partially out. Detach the connector from the power button board to fully remove the board from the unit. There is a small slot on the stand that the board slides into. A small notch on the board aligns over the back edge of the slot. To replace the power button board, first reattach the connector to the board. Slide the board into its slot until the retaining tab rests over the front edge of the board. Loosen the 4 Phillips No. 2 screws for the heatsink over the CPU in the order indicated by the stencils on the module. Loosen the 4 Phillips No. 2 screws over the GPU if there is a GPU installed in the unit. Remove the Phillips No. 2 screw at the radiator end of the module. Carefully lift the heatsink out of the unit. Before replacing the heatsink, first clean off the thermal grease from the CPU. And the heatsink. Remove the 2 Phillips No. 1 screws that secure the GPU to the motherboard. The GPU will pop up. Pull the GPU out of its motherboard socket. There is a notch in the edge of the GPU and the fan. Remove the M.2 drive if installed in the unit. Detach the hard drive SATA cable for access to the screw that secures the stand to the stand arm. Detach the 3 scalar connectors from the motherboard. Detach the wireless LAN antennas from the wireless LAN board. Use a 4mm hex wrench to loosen the connecting screw between the stand arm and the stand. Pull the stand partially off of the panel assembly. Feed the scalar connectors and antennas one by one through their access hole on the stand up toward the stand arm until the stand can be fully removed from the panel assembly. To reconnect the panel assembly to the stand assembly, first feed the scalar and wireless LAN cables one by one down through their access hole on the stand. Carefully pry the speaker mesh off the top of the stand assembly. There are several tabs around the speaker mesh from the stand assembly. Detach the 8 Phillips No. 2 screws at the top of the stand assembly that secure the speakers to the assembly. Carefully flip over the stand assembly. Detach the speaker connectors to the motherboard. Pull the speakers off of the stand assembly, freeing the speaker's interconnector from the guides under the motherboard. To replace the speakers, align the speakers back onto their standoffs on the stand and the GPU. Remove the tape covering the battery. Remove the battery from the motherboard. Wait 30 seconds. Replace the heatsink and the motherboard from the stand assembly. Detach the 4 Phillips No. 2 screws for the bracket that covers the volume dial board. Pull the bracket off of the stand assembly. Disengage the volume dial board connector from its cable guide and detach it from the volume dial board. Pry the volume dial board off of the stand. Note that it is affixed with strong adhesive and will require some force. There are small locator pins on the top stand cover that small holes on the volume dial board fit over. To replace the volume dial board to the top stand cover, press the volume board, remove the stand arm rear cover and the stand arm. Press the top of the webcam box to release it into the up position. Grasp the rear cover at the top near the webcam and carefully pry the rear cover off of the panel assembly. Feed the panel assembly connectors through the hole in the rear cover to fully remove the rear cover from the unit. And the scalar board shield from the panel assembly. Detach all connectors from the scalar board. Pull the scalar board off of the panel assembly. To replace the scalar board, press the board into place. The panel chin plate is held to the front of the LCD panel with very strong adhesive. It is recommended to blow heat onto the plate area to help soften the adhesive before carefully prying the panel chin plate off of the panel. Note that removing the chin plate will likely destroy the chin plate, and whenever a chin plate is removed, it must be replaced. To replace the scalar board shield, the hinge bracket, the wireless LAN antennas, the scalar board, the webcam front cover, and the panel chin plate. Detach the connector or connectors from the LCD panel, depending on the panel installed in the unit. Disengage the panel connectors from the cable guides on the back panel cover. Remove the motherboard connectors from the back panel cover. Disengage the scalar board connectors from the cable guides on the back panel cover. Pry out and remove the Hall sensor cable from the back panel cover. Peel back the tape on the sides of the center metal bracket that secure it to the panel assembly. Detach the 7 Phillips No. 2 screws securing the center metal bracket to the panel assembly. Pull off the center metal bracket with the cables and webcam attached. Remove the 31 Phillips No. 2 screws that secure the back panel cover to the panel. 11 of the screws are silver, and their locations are indicated by the stencil labeled M3X3. The remaining 20 screws are black screws. Pull the back panel cover off of the panel. New panels come with their back bracket attached. To replace the back panel cover to the LCD panel, place the bracket back onto the panel, pressing the edges down into place. Secure the back panel cover to the LCD panel with its 31 screws. 11 of the screws are silver and should be installed in the locations marked with the stencil M3X3. Place the center metal bracket with the webcam assembly and cables attached back onto the panel assembly. Secure the bracket with its 7 Phillips No. 2 screws. Tape the bottom of the bracket to the panel. Press the Hall sensor back into its location on the back panel cover. Replace the scalar board connectors into their cable guides on the back panel cover. Replace the motherboard connectors onto the back panel cover. Replace the panel connector or connectors, depending on the panel installed, into their guides on the back panel cover. And reattach the connector or connectors to the LCD panel.